Mirasee.
Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and you're listening to Making It. I run a business called Self-Publishing School. We help people write and publish books that grow their impact, their income, and their business in as little as 90 days. So think of it kind of like a business accelerator that helps people write and publish books that make an impact and that grow their business. I'm a C-level English student and a college dropout with ADHD. When my friends would be writing a paper in an hour or two, turn in and get an A, I'd be up all night in the library, finally turn in and get a C or a D. So it didn't come easy, but I will say that, sometimes they say the worst players make the best coaches, or the worst students make the best teachers because they know what it's like to struggle with something. So I went from someone who didn't like writing and wasn't good at it to now, I run a company called Self-Publishing School, and we help people write and publish books. Almost everyone that's listening to this right now has probably had their life changed by reading a book, right? So books change the lives of readers, but books also change the lives of authors. We always say it's not about the book, it's about who you become in the process of writing and publishing that book. It's kind of like when I grew up in Scouts. Growing up, my Scoutmaster, we were out in the woods on a camping trip, and I said, "Hey, are there bears out here?" And he said, "Yeah, there is. That's why we're hanging our food up in the tree." And I said, "Well, what if we run into one?" And he said, "Well, Chandler, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than your friends. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know a little bit more than the person that you're teaching." And so I firmly believe that you don't have to have a bunch of letters behind your name to write a great book. Books change lives, and they're one of the best things that you can do to grow your impact, to grow your income, and to grow your business if you have one. One of the lessons my mom and my dad taught me growing up, which was bloom where you're planted. Right? They always said, "Hey, it doesn't matter if you're sweeping the floors, what you're doing, do it to the best of your ability and bloom where you're planted, and someone will notice." And so that was a big thing for me is, all right, I don't know where this is going to end up, or much less how I'm going to get there. But if I just keep saying, "Hey, what's the next thing in front of me? And I'm going to do it to the best of my ability," and then somebody's going to notice. And then doing that and doing that and doing that, and that compounding enough, I think it gave me the confidence to start and grow Self-Publishing School. But then also along the way, started building momentum. The big trigger for me for writing my first book was, it was a conversation with me and my brother. And so my brother, he plays in the Grammy-nominated rock and roll band called Need to Breathe, travels the country playing music, and then I'm kind of the business guy. And so we started talking, and we said, we feel like there's these things that our parents taught us growing up that we thought were normal. We thought everyone learns this stuff. And then we got out into the real world and realized that no one gets taught this stuff. And so what if we could create a book on this? So it's kind of the book that we just found ourselves repeating over and over and over again, these things with our friends and with people who are curious. And so we said, what if we wrote that book, and let's do it, these 15 things, and your take as a musician, my take as a business guy. And so we wrote that first book as a charity project, and it was buy one book, save one life. So every book sold purchased a life-saving malaria pill for someone in a third world country. And really the intent was we want people to, they'll change their lives when they buy the book by reading it, but they'll also save the life of someone in a third world country. And so that was the goal, is let's do this project for charity, but really let's create a way to teach what we've learned from our parents to other people. And so that was the first book, and then kind of cascaded into a second book, and then fast forward to today. And I've published 7 books, and we've helped thousands of people. So when I was about 21 years old, I was on a rewards cruise. This was for a company that I worked with at the time, and they take all their top performers on a cruise at the end of the year. And on the very last night of that cruise, I was up there with a few of my friends, and we were on this cruise ship. And so we're up there, we're talking about our goals and dreams and all that stuff. And kind of out of nowhere, we're next to this sonar thing, and the sonar just kind of unexpectedly starts to spin. And it spins around, and I look to my left, and right as I look to my left, it starts spinning around, and it hits my friend Kendall right in the chest and sweeps him over the railing, and he falls 2 stories. Now, about this time, I remember looking down and thinking, okay, he fell, like he probably has a broken arm or something, and he'll be fine, and he'll hop up. But I looked down, and he wasn't moving. And it was about that time that my friend Christian, he yelled out, he said, "Hey, somebody get some help." And I remember we scaled down to him, and I was the first one to get down there, rolled him over. Like, we rushed the ship into port. They rushed him to the hospital. And then we find out a few hours later that Kendall, he actually passed away on the way to the hospital. Now, It was a week or so later, and it was after his funeral. And I was talking to his dad, and his dad, he wanted to know what happened, right? He wasn't there. And so he wanted to know what happened. I'm telling him what happened, and I'll never forget. He said, Chandler, he's my only son. He's a family name. He said, I'm old. I can't have more kids. The family name died with Kendall. And he said, the only good that can come out of this is if other people's lives are positively impacted by the fact that this happened. And whoo, man, that just hit me right in the chest as I realized, it was in that moment that I was already feeling kind of like guilt. And I felt like, hey, it was my idea to go up there. If I wouldn't have had this idea, Kendall would still be alive. Like, this is my fault, all these things. And I remember, just hearing that and saying, all right, it's my responsibility to make sure that lives are changed and people are impacted by the fact that this happened. And so I kind of felt like I'm living for two now. I'm a firm believer, and I think this is very applicable for everyone listening, is that life and business is about the journey. It's not about the destination or about the mountaintop experiences. So I think we have these external kind of validating moments where we're like, man, I've made it. And it feels so good, especially as an entrepreneur, just how deep those valleys are, right? And the struggle that it takes to get there. But I tell you what, those moments make it real sweet. But then followed by, for me, one of the hardest points was learning to stop and smell the roses and realize that this is about the journey. And there will be many moments of feeling like I've made it, but ultimately never making it, if that makes sense, because it's a lifelong journey and a lifelong pursuit if it's something that you're excited about and passionate about. One of our youngest students is 8-year-old Emma Sumner. She decided to write and publish a book at 8 years old. It totally changed the trajectory of her life. And then because she wrote and published a book, we now have kids all around the country and around the world that are inspired to write their books. So we've got kids showing up to our conference and kids writing books. And it all started by one person, her dad, saying, hey, I want to write a book, joining self-publishing school, doing that. But then that inspired her to write a book. And then that's inspired a bunch of people since then, and other kids who say, hey, I can do that. I see myself in Emma. And then not to mention the adults who said, if an 8-year-old can do it, I guess I probably can too. So one of the charities that benefited through Emma writing a book is she was able to donate the proceeds of her book to an autism awareness charity called Autism Speaks. So really cool story. She has a friend with autism and said, hey, I want to do something to help. And she donated the proceeds from her book to that charity. So just such a cool thing. I mean, I believe that business and books, they exist. They change lives in so many ways. There's through the impact of the pages, through the money that they make. And then if you decide to do something through a nonprofit or something like that, you can impact other people through that as well. I'm Chandler Bolt, and you've been listening to Making It. You can find me at self-publishingschool.com/apply. If you'd like to grab a copy of my brand new book, published, The Proven Path from Blank Page to 10,000 Copies Sold. If you'd like to grab a copy, the first 50 people, I will give you a physical copy for free. So I've created a link. It's publishedbook.com/Danny. All right. So published book, like I published a book.com/Danny, DANNY. That's the best place. Go there. You can grab a copy of the book for free. I will print it, pack it, ship it, everything for free. That's for the first 50 people.
Making It is part of the Mirasee FM podcast network, which also includes such shows as Course Lab and Just Between Coaches. This episode of Making It was assembled by Jeff Govertson. Cynthia Lamb produced the episode. Danny Berman is our associate producer. Danny Inney is our executive producer. Post-production was by Post Office Sound. To catch the great episodes that are coming up on Making It, go ahead and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now. And if you liked this show, please leave us a starred review. It's the best way to help us get these ideas to more people. Thank you. We'll see you next time.